In this lesson, we're going to take a look at overcoming advanced gaps. Alright, so up to this point we've gone through and we've started building out the polygons, and we've created strips to create our shape, and we've kind of separated out the gaps by creating new straps or new parts of the cage here for our object. And now we've come down to this final set of gaps here. And the problem that we have, if we take a look at all of this, is the topology and how many segments we used to create this topology in between. So here on the back side we have two polygons, okay, that are supposed to fill this gap all the way around. Here we have one polygon, and then as we come down around here to the bottom, we've got three polygons. So here we have to come up with the decision, what is going to be easiest to fill these gaps? Do we want to go ahead and split this into three polygons and then add one more polygon to this and then continue that around? Or do we want to reduce that down to two or even down to one? So here we just have to do a little bit of thinking. What's going to be easiest for us? Well, one polygon is much easier to deal with than two, and definitely easier to deal with than three, especially when it's going across an entire loop that takes up pretty much the entire model across the top here. So we can temporarily come in and remove edges. Now to remove edges, we want to hold down Control and Backspace. Now I do have this one polygon right here that I also want to get rid of. I'm going to hit Control Backspace. So we have a single polygon that's going from this edge to the back side of the border there. We have this one already set, so we're going to leave that alone. And then we're going to take this edge and hit Control Backspace to remove it. So now it's just going to be a matter of filling in the gaps, and then we'll create the shape that we need afterward. So let's come in, let's use our freeform tools under Polydraw Extend. I'm going to hold down Control and Alt and then left click and drag from each edge to fill in those holes. And because we've built it in such a way that we've tried to follow along with this topology, it should go fairly quickly. Now looking at this, as I start to get around to the corner here, it looks like we may need to add in one more segment. So let's start down here. Let's left click and drag. And let's figure out this problem together. So here we need one more segment, and we actually got rid of one of those segments from before. So let's go ahead and get rid of this polygon. So let's go to polygon mode and hit delete, and let's add in a segment. So I'm going to go to edge mode here, okay, and let's go into modeling, edit, swift loop, and let's hold down shift right here in the middle and then left click, and that should bring that geometry out and keep it nice and smooth. And then now we can come in and use our freeform tools again, extend, hold down Alt left click or Control Alt left click and drag over those polygons. So now we've created the geometry that we need to fill those gaps, and we've got all the loops that we need on the main part of our object here. So now what we want to do is we want to come in and we want to use our swift loop to create those segments. So we're going to create just one single segment this time, and I'm going to hold down shift and do this. I'm going to left click and drag, or I'm sorry, just hold down shift and then left click, and then we're going to take our move tool, we'll move that down first. Now you'll notice here that that did not connect to this loop. Why did it not do that? Let's hit Control Z a couple times to get rid of that loop. Normally if a loop does not go all the way through, that means that one of these vertices right here is not welded together. So if I select around this vertex, we can see that it says vertex 157. Let's select around this one, and it says vertex 69. So we have a little bit of a problem. Now as we take a closer look on the inside, it looks like we forgot to remove some edges. So let's go to polygon mode, and I'm going to remove these polygons right here across the top and just hit delete. Okay. Now from here, let's go ahead and take that polygon, and I'm trying to see it here, sorry. Let's take that polygon right here and delete it. So now all we have to do is go from edge to edge and then hit bridge. Let's use our bridge settings, make sure that that's set to 1, and there we go. So that should be set properly. I'm also going to pull that back some. Okay, and let's just make sure it's this edge right here. Let me pull that back. Okay, now let's go to Swift Loop. Let's hold down Shift right here in the middle of that segment, and that's in there. Let's go to our Move tool, and I'm going to pull that down in the Z first. There we go. So it creates that little gap, and then I'm going to pull it over in the X. Okay, and before we pull it over in the X, let's actually get rid of these segments right here. Let's push that over, and then let's take these segments and let's pull those back in the Y and then up in the Z a little bit. So it creates a nice little gap there. I'm going to take this vertex right here on the corner, I'm going to pull that forward in the Y, and then let's take this edge and pull that up. So it creates kind of a lip that this part of the object is sitting on. Take this one and we pull that out. And let me take this one and pull that out as well. So we're just trying to create a little bit of a shape coming off of that. Okay, so everything is looking good so far. We've added in the geometry that we need, and I believe we even got rid of some of the geometry that we didn't necessarily need. So some of that was just kind of hiding underneath and didn't really have a real purpose. So we don't necessarily need that. Now before we move on, let's do one thing. Let's select all the vertices along this center line. Let's make sure that we have them on the front and the back. And let's use our Make Planar in the X direction. Make sure that everything is lined up perfectly. And then let's go to our symmetry. And let's just make sure that that line of symmetry is still intact. Alright, so now that this has been built, let's go ahead and smooth it out. Let's go to Editable Poly and select all the elements. Okay, or go to element mode, select all the polygons in there. And let's go to our smoothing groups. Let's clear all and set it to 1. So that has been smoothed out. If we hit F4, we can see our model, what that's looking like. So far, so good. If you have some dark spots that you don't really care much for, you can come in, you can add another segment in here. So you can do that a couple of different ways. You can come in and select this loop. You can use chamfer. Okay, and you can split that into 2, make that a little bit smoother on the corner. Or you can come in and you can go to Modeling, Edit, and Swift Loop. Hold down Shift and then left click and drag, and that's going to bring that out. Conforms to the over topology, and you still have a very smooth segment there. So either way will be fine. In my case, I like to use chamfer. Okay, in this particular portion, I'm going to select this one right here actually, because chamfer, what it does is it averages that out in between the two and keeps my polygons about the same size. Okay, and it also keeps my smoothing groups intact. Okay, so now that we have this object, in our next lesson what we're going to do is we're going to create the pouches on the side of this, and from here on out we're going to be continuing to use these tools, but now we're going to be learning some techniques for working smarter. Now that you've got the basis of polygon modeling and creating details, we're going to explore more into polygon modeling because it goes just beyond working with single polygons.